Okay, guys, this is not what I was going to read, but okay, let's try that again. That's not what I want. So, okay, go here. So I'm reading a Creepypasta story by Giraffe Hugger. Go check them out. They have a lot of creepypastas, and today I'm reading about My Little Pony theory. You all have probably know about the new generation of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. It has, for one reason or another, become an overnight sensation. Whether or not you like the show yourself, you have to admit the success is impressive. However, it raised the question. Lauren Faust has worked on another popular shows and has been working on her own line of toys, the Galaxy Girls. How did she wind up creating the remake of the some 80s toy commercial instead of working on her own ideas? It could be that she's just nostalgic about her childhood My Little Pony toys or something, but even then, what artist wouldn't rather work on their own ideas? I read I read this news story a few weeks ago. It was about six girls who all went to the same school and died on the same day, January 18th, 1989. A friend of mine from New NC sent me the article from a small local newspaper I forgot about until I was watching a few episodes of My Little Pony and realized the main characters were are surprisingly similar to the girls who died. I decided to look for the article again. The paper had either gotten shut down or I had misremembered the name. So I tried tracking down my old World of Warcraft buddy and asked him for the article. Turned out he happened to have the file he saved to his computer, and I was right. The definition and find connection here. The first girl, Samantha Gales, was obviously inspiration for Fluttershy, a shy, introverted girl. What her classmates didn't know, she was constantly abused at home by her mother and stepfather. Her mother conceived her at age 15 and blamed poor Samantha for ruining her life. This made Samantha self-conscious. When her stepfather moved in, this made the neglect worsen. Her stepfather never liked having to take care of Samantha when her mother was away, so he would lock her in the basement and leave her sometimes for a whole day. Her mother tolerated this, and as she grew, she would hit Samantha for talking out of turn. When her half-sister was born, the abuse considerably became considerably worse. She would be starved, forced to sleep outside, and sometimes beaten outright because she dressed in shabby clothes and had low self-esteem. She was often picked on by other kids at school. Her only friends were animals she would rescue, which her family would make her get rid of. She committed suicide by overdose on thallium. The second girl, Janice Walters, was always one of the popular girls. She was rich, smart, beautiful, she and seemed to live the charmed life. However, her parents argued constantly, and were only together for appearance. She was held up to a high standard which made her a perfectionist. She wanted to be a designer and live in Paris, but her parents wanted her to remain in Carolina and marry a proper man, one of good breeding and high income. For the most part, her parents ignored her. Her parents' only concern was appearing rich of and of high social standing, but in reality, her mother married her father because of money. But since he accumulated so much debt, they had been losing money fast. This is this is what got her interested in the fashion entirely. Then she started making her own fashionable clothes to maintain the appearance appearance of wealth. She died in a car crash when her mother and father got into an argument over money while he was driving. Her neck was snapped on the impact, and she died instantly. She was clearly the inspiration of rarity. Hold on, y'all. This may take a while. Then there was Alexandra Matthews. Alex was a competitive girl. She always thought to be the best of the best at the best, especially at sports, track in particular. Her father always wanted a boy, and since her mother was declared incapable of having another child, he decided to raise her as if as if she was his son. In the end, though, she loved her mother and father and was more happy to play sport with her father. She excelled at them. Even this made her popular, and by the time she was in high school and being sought out in athlete scouts from college all over the country, this made her try even harder. She always wanted to compete in the Olympics. However, when she was 15, her mother, she who had been who had been told she could never have another child, but had a son. After that, her parents didn't pay very much attention to her, which made her more determined to succeed. She ended up pushing herself so hard at track she neglected her friends, her grades, and even her personal health. At one point, she became so desperate she started taking steroids. What her family didn't know was that she had a minor heart condition that the steroids worsened. Then she was pushing herself so hard physically as well. She ended up collapsing during the match due to a heart complication. She died in the hospital a few days later. In the show, Rainbow Dash seems the most similar. The girl who most similar to Applejack, Jamie Sanders, was a farm girl just like the character based off of her. What the show didn't include was that her farm was run down and her family struggled with money. She often worked odd jobs under the table to try and help to support her family. She had many brothers and sisters, and she was the second, which meant it was up to her and her brother to take care of the youngins. This meant she didn't have time to hang out with friends or take any activities or even do her homework on the most night. She had an she had an aunt whom her family from Manhattan was based off of, who kept offering to send money to support her mother and father, but they were proud and always refused. That is until her father died from a heart attack in 1987. Her mother followed shortly after, having killed herself when she couldn't handle the pressure of taking care of all the children. They were taken in by their senile grandma, who was incapable of truly taking care of him. Jamie herself often helped out with the other family's yard work to keep her family afloat. She died when she fell into a wood chipper. Pinkie Pie's inspiration is probably has the saddest story. Catherine Jackson was a foster child and moved from home to home. Her birth her birth father killed her mother and himself in a foot fridge when she was 5, and she could never settle into a good home. Some foster families would take her in and were merely interested in the financial support adopting the child would bring, and refused to feed or clothe her. Even she was in a nice home with a good family, the old memories still haunted her, breaking her fragile sanity to in pieces. She started having nightmares of her mother screaming and bleeding, and her father screaming for her, claiming to be after her next. By the time she was in high school, she completely snapped and started to hallucinate and act out in class. Many of the kids assumed that she was merely hyperactive and trying to be funny. She would often paint and draw and write about fantastical things and dressed in over-the-top clothing. While her condition was getting worse and worse, the voices and images became more realistic and more demanding. She died when she jumped off a building, one of the voices having told her she could fly. What makes that last fact more chilling is that Lauren originally designed the Pinkie Pie to be a Pegasus, as seen in her early developed sketches. Whew, sweet mother of Lord. Ooh, this is sad. The last Private Sparkle inspiration was a student by the name of Cynthia Riddle. Cynthia Riddle. She was held up to a high standard from a young age. Her older brother was always getting awards for academies and athletics and achievements. She was held up to the same high standards. She ended up neglecting the other facets of her life in order to make sure she got the best grade for a while. This worked. Her parents were proud of her accomplishment and bragged to their friends about not having just one genius child, but two. That is until a local private academy for a gifted started to become interested in her. Among several other advanced students, she knew that this would be the best opportunity she could have to provide herself as the perfect child, but the pressure was was high. She knew that there were a limited spot for new students, and she knew there would be a test and essays to required to get in. So she became a little desperate. She studied to the point where she could hardly eat and never sleep. The test closed in. She panicked and obeyed to find essay online to copy during the test, resorting to cheating. When she was caught, her parents were horrified. She sank into a deep depression and eventually hung herself to save herself the shame of being the imperfect daughter. You might be wondering now why Lauren Fawcett was inspired to make the street children so inspired by such depressing events. Perhaps she felt some odd make odd to give the girls closure, or perhaps tell the story in a way she could and think about it. In one episode named The Cutie Chronicles, each chronicle described how they each earned their cutie mark. Grandma was who was able to make the onyx rainbow on the same day for all the girls to see and to make them able to earn their cutie marks. Clearly, make you tend to wonder each girl's death in real life on the same day. And in the show, Fluttershy is able to take care of animals she adores. Rarity is a successful designer with 11 parents. Rainbow is in fact a great athlete. Applejack is has a successful farm. Pinkie Pie is happy without a care in the world, and Charlie Sparkle was accepted into an inclusive school. Maybe, just maybe, she wanted to give the spirit of these girls what they always wanted. And I think they're happy. Okay, I think this is the end of the story. Comment down below if you want more. Excuse me. Yeah, have a good time watching this video, and I hope you just ignore my bad reading. I cannot read for crap, but